Hello, art lovers, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Although, in this particular case, technically, we are appreciating the form in third-party GoBots. That's right, GoBots. Got the here we have the Machine Robo MR-03 Eagle Robo, who is designed after, I believe the character's name is Leader One. I used to be into GoBots when I was little, and then GoBots went away, and so I just kind of stuck with Transformers. I did actually used to own this guy though. It was the blue and white version, and yeah, I had a few other GoBots, but I saw this guy, saw that he was coming out, and I just he looked so cool, so I had to give him a shot, and he is really impressive looking. I mean, he is a nice, fairly clean looking jet. Even the underside, there's not really a whole lot of robotness under there, which is pretty impressive. So this is the the typical kind of gray that you would expect. Nice blue, nice dark blue, very rich color actually on the cockpit there. The landing gear do fold up, so you can fly with him. Now, this little port here is actually an optional piece that you don't have to attach, and it can be removed, although it's in there pretty good, so I don't feel like taking it off, but this does actually pop out. This is actually a place where you can peg him into his stand, and I'm actually, in a bizarre twist, going to be showing that off in a little bit. But anyway, one of the things I really think is neat about this this jet mode is the fact that he's got a fair number of panel lines, but a lot of the line work in these panels actually connects really well to other panels. So it almost sort of distracts from how there are so many panels. Like, it just allows them to kind of flow together very well, which looks really nice. The overall color scheme is pretty basic. I mean, it's just gray and then a little bit of silver for the vents up top here. A little bit of like maybe a gunmetal gray in the exhaust vents there, and of course the darker gray on the underside for the missiles and the bits in here, and these pieces on the sides, which are actually, and again, I'll have to show this off a little bit later, but each of these pieces here, these dark gray pieces, are a half of his gun. And so these will pull out, the missiles come off, and it all combines to make his gun, which is actually really cool. There's a little bit of like a silvery color on the engines in the back there and on the top, and then some black for the engines themselves. And these are actually die cast, which is nice. They're pretty solid. It's a little bit weird how they kind of stick out like that, but these are actually going to form his feet, so I guess it was kind of necessary because they need to be able to wiggle around. But yeah, I mean, he's a nifty looking jet. Oh, this piece here is die cast as well. Yeah, he's cool, and I have to admit, like, with the exception of maybe this piece here, which under this light looks a little bit lighter, like the overall, like just the color matching for the plastics and stuff is very, very close. And I guess realistically speaking, this is the only painted piece of gray plastic of gray, but they matched it pretty close. So it is very nice. And this is actually a very, very nicely done jet form. I mean, it looks pretty darn close to what I remember from the show, and pretty darn close to what I would expect a jet like this to look like. I'm not a huge aviation guy, but it looks really cool. And as I said, just the detail on the paneling here is really cool, how it just sort of intersects with itself. Now, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently this time, in that I'm actually going to be showing off a little bit more. I'm going to be doing some comparisons So, just try to bear with me. And, if you enjoy this particular format, let me know. I'm open to suggestions and changes. So I'm only going to do one comparison because it's the only one that I felt was appropriate. So this is Eagle Robo next to Generations Crasher. I'm sorry, Generations Fracture. And this one was, I actually do plan on doing a video for this one too, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But yeah, this was the Hasbro sort of homage-ish version where they took, why am I suddenly blanking? Mirage. They took the Generations Mirage figure and painted it up to look like Crasher from GoBots, and it's very cool. But yeah, so you can see Fracture and Eagle Robo. Eagle Robo is a little bit longer, definitely wider. Yeah, that definitely out of scale too, but that's that is that. Now, he also comes with, actually, move him off to the side here. He comes with a lot of other extra stuff. A lot of extra stuff. We've got pieces up the yin yang here. Comes with all this stuff, plus that other piece that's attached, which we're ignoring that for now. So all of this stuff here is actually a modular base that you can configure in all sorts of different ways. Let's kind of slot that together, and it's pretty easy to separate, but it holds together well enough. This piece here, which is designed to actually hold the ratcheted parts for the arm, this piece will clip in at the top, and that actually holds it together much more solidly. So what's cool about this is, again, the fact that it's modular. So you could potentially take these pieces here, link them together, and then plug these on the back here, and then you can do like more for these and kind of double it up, and then you have just like this base for him to stand on. But what's also cool is, because it's made in these pieces, you can actually do things like you can notice there are tabs all over these pieces, tabs and slots, and just they're all over. And that gives you a lot of leeway when it comes to how you want to use this as a display, and that's really cool. So what you can do is slot this in there, just like that, and then take the other one here, slot those together, and they have like a slightly angled stand. And then you can actually, there's slots on the underside of these as well, or backside, however you want to view it. You can slot those together. If I can see around everything here. Okay. And now there's this nice little inclined stand. And then from there, we can actually start putting the armature together. And it's very, very easy. And they hold together really tight too. It's not so tight that it's scary to get them off, but they hold together really well. And these ratchets are kind of scary tight. Like, well, maybe not scary tight, but they are a little concerning. So yeah, you can adjust that, plug that on, and then you can just plug this in here and adjust myself so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. and adjust the camera just to show it off there. And there you go. He's flying. And it also works in robot mode. It's kind of silly, but I think it's really cool that this is an option that they included. They totally didn't have to do that, but they did it. And it is much appreciated. All right. Get him front and center there. Okay. So, transformation. I was trying to decide whether I should actually show transformation because, quite honestly, I've never shown transformation on camera before, really, and I'm not entirely confident in my abilities to keep it on in frame, but we'll give it a shot. Why not? So, the missiles just unplug, and then these pieces on the side, this one comes out pretty easily. Like, it holds in securely, but it comes out pretty easily. This one is in there really tight, and I don't have nails that are good enough to do that, so I'm gonna pry this out off camera. Be right back. Okay, so that is that off. Now, I'll put him down and show this off real quick because I thought this was really cool. The missiles, there's a kind of a long tab and slot here, and they both have the same thing. It's alternating. So you can actually sandwich them together like this. And that's going to create the backs of the missiles become the front of his gun. Then there are these slots on either side of these gun halves that will slot onto the missiles here, either on this side or this side, it doesn't matter. So you just slot them in and slot that in, and that's it. And they create his gun, and that is very cool. And we'll, of course, get into this a little bit more in a minute. Now, for this guy, it all starts from the back, moving to the front. Now, for the legs, there's not really any specific order you want to do things in. I typically like to just fold the wings down on the small side wings and the back down. Open up these thrusters here to make the feet. Now, this is actually important. What you want to do is you actually want to fold the big main wings down before you do anything else with the legs, because you can see these tabs here that actually slot into the side there, and that locks everything into place. So you don't want to try moving these legs before you've moved those wings. Once that's done, you just kind of loosen this up a little bit, and then you can pull one of the legs out. They tab in up here. You can see there's tab there, and then swing it around so I can show you what I'm doing here. You pull this up gently, and that will free up the leg. Then there's this second area, the second hinge here that kind of pulls out, and so as you're pulling that, as you're kind of pulling this out, you're also pulling the leg back, and then this just goes forward and stops. You can tell where it stops by looking at, see if I can angle this right. In here, you can see there's this little, this longer tab section here. That's not actually a tab that anything hooks onto. That is actually where the leg will naturally stop when you're, lighting is making it difficult to tell, but basically you're bringing this forward and then it stops against that little piece that's sticking out, and that's so that you don't pull it out too far. It won't lock in or anything like that, but it gets the job done. And then you can fold the other half of the wing around, and this also doesn't peg in. It doesn't slot in anywhere. Sometimes what I tend to prefer to do is there's this hole here that's sticking out a little bit. That's where the missiles peg in. That tends to kind of this is not good. That kind of bumps up against the back of the leg there. So if you pull the wing out just a little bit more, you can actually fold that in a little bit better. And that gives you a bit of a flatter back of the leg, which works for me. It's not necessary, but I think it works. And that is one leg. Other leg is same exact story. You just pull it up to untab it, and then kind of finagle all this around, and that'll just stop. And then fold the last bit of the wing down, and that's that. Okay. So, oh wow, actually it looks like the camera's at the perfect height for this. Okay. Now we're going to deal with pulling back the nose cone, and this is one of the issues that I've had with this figure. Granted, I haven't had him terribly long, but this has already become a common issue. Every time I've transformed him between modes, his head always pops off when I'm doing this. And yep, you can totally see that his head has come off. Now, it didn't break. It is not actually broken. There's no you can't see any place where like glue has come undone or anything like that. What it actually is there's this little kind of half circle shape slot in there and this little half circle shaped peg there, and that all comes together to no, actually it's this way. That all comes together and pegs together, and this actually forms the back of his head. And it's snug. Like, this is not something that's going to pop off on its own. I think they actually did this on purpose as like a failsafe so that if you're, pulling this out, you're not actually going to damage the head, because if this was glued down, the clearances on this are tight enough that, if nothing else, you'd be scratching the paint a lot, but there's definitely a chance that you could pop it off the ball socket or actually do some damage to this armature joint, whatever here. So yeah, I'm thinking that pops off on purpose. It's like a breakaway head for safety reasons. But anyway, once all that nonsense is taken care of, you just kind of, that's down. Now, these panels on the underside here, these ones on the towards the front here will pop up and pop up. And then these other ones here will also fold up this way. Now, because of the way they're in there, and also because of the fact that I don't really have nails, it's easiest for me to kind of get a finger under the back part and pull up where you see this this joint here, and then I can kind of pull it up the rest of the way. Because if I try and come at it from this angle, it doesn't really work. So just kind of pull up, loosen it, pull that up, and that is that. Right. So now, at this point, it's time for the arms. And these are going to be where we start. These little flaps here. Need to kind of pull those out, and I'll show where they're pegged in once I get the arms out here. So as you're pulling that out, this is going to slide back. You kind of, I've noticed it's best if you kind of tilt it a little bit as you pull out, and then this whole double jointed section here comes down. Now, when you're transforming this guy into a jet, this actually gave me trouble when I first got this guy, because the instructions just say you slide this up, but if you are doing it kind of from robot mode, this is not going to fit. So what you need to do is, because this is an extra hinge here, you actually need to kind of work this down a little bit, and that will give you, that'll get things lined up. And generally what you want to do is you want to line this gray tab here with there's like a tiny, almost imperceptible little groove between the top of the shoulder here and this part of the bicep. You just want to line those up, and that will allow you to slide it in, and then that'll peg in and everything will be cool. So yeah, just a little tip, a little heads up. All right, so when that's pulled out, then you want to pull this out, and this is another thing that they mention in the instructions when you're transforming them. There's actually a slot here and a tab on this part of this joint here. You want to bring that up and line the two of them up so that they just kind of plug in together. So that's something to be aware of when transforming them into a jet. So you pop that out, then you can, we'll deal with that later. Okay, so you want to pull gently, but you want to pull this section out. That so it compresses in just this little part where you can see this little line in the shoulder, or what will be the shoulder, that separates out, and that will allow you to turn the bicep. And this is yet another thing in the instructions that's a little bit weird. They tell you to push this in first and then turn the bicep, but when you do that, it doesn't want to turn because this is in the way. So you actually want to turn the bicep, then push this in when you're transforming it into a jet. I don't know. So with that done, this actually stays separated. And then this piece here, make sure it's focusing, this piece here will rotate up. And you want to be careful because, you know, there's like this little flap here. You don't want to push too hard on that. But, you know, if you're forceful, like as long as you know which way to turn it, I think you'll be fine. So just, you know, carefully tilt it up that way until it clicks. You'll feel it click right into place there. And then there's the fist on the underside here. You just flip that up. And then this little flap that was the back of the jet will actually fold in and close off the bottom of the forearm. And that is an arm. And second arm is the exact same deal. We just pop that up. You can see there are these, they're hard to tell, but there are little slots in this midsection here that these tabs on the underside of the flaps will actually go into. So that's where those will peg in. So we do that, pop that out, and separate, slide this out, rotate this bit up, and it clicks. Okay. Let's rotate the bicep and flip out the hand and close the little flappy thing. All right, we're almost done. And now at this point, you want to just give the torso a little slide back. It's very slight, but this does actually pop out just a little bit to help with the transformation and help line everything up. So then you just pop it back in. Okay. And can rotate the head around. And then this armature will actually fold back, give him a bit more of a normal looking head, one that's not like, you know, a super long neck. Okay, now the last little bit is these panels on the back here. And these are, I don't want to say tricky, but there's this very specific thing you got to do. In order to get these past the nose cone, I find it's best to fold these flaps all the way down and flare out these on the sides. Then you can actually, should be able to just easily kind of work the nose cone right past all those little bits there. Yep, there we go. And that can just go down for now. And we can flip these back up. Okay, so this is a little bit interesting. There's these grooves on the front of these little side flaps here, and these will actually slot into or slot over the front of the torso. So when you bring this up, you want to try and line them up against that. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. Doing what I can. So you line those up and push them in, and they should, yep, you'll feel them kind of settle into place, and they'll stop wiggling around. And then for these flaps on the back here, they have these tabs here, and they're actually slots on these armatures that the arms are attached to. So these will actually clip in on those and lock them into place. But you're going to have to wiggle these out a little bit because, as you can see, they're kind of, as I think you can see, they're kind of butting into the torso here. So you actually do need to flex them a little bit. And then just line everything up, and it'll tab in, and that will make a nice solid connection so the arm will stop wiggling around. And same thing on the other side, which is going to be very difficult to see because my lighting is terrible, and I'm sorry. Well, not terrible. It's better than it was, but could be better. Okay. Okay, and then, sorry for the jump cut. My camera decided it was done filming and had to make some room for it. But anyway, last thing you want to do is the entire cockpit of the jet mode will just hinge up and rest against his back. And it doesn't peg in anywhere or anything, but it's pretty solidly there. And that is Eagle Robo, and that is very cool. I am quite the fan. Now, I will say this is one optional way to have his little collar section, but it is actually in the promo shots meant you can actually totally position these little things vertically so it looks like he's got that like popped collar going, which it's kind of silly, but I kind of really like it. Anyway, yeah, that is Eagle Robo. And now, real quick, bring out his gun. And this, he just holds. Well, actually, now, before we go into the gun, we'll look at him properly. Now, all the plane stuff is still on him on the outside, which is cool. There's actually a lot of little bits that were hidden, like just the thighs were hidden, biceps, that kind of stuff, this whole midsection. It's really cool to me how they were able to hide so much robot inside that jet. You know, the head. The head is interesting. It's like, it kind of looks like there are eyes in there, but it also looks like there aren't. Like, it just depends on the angle you're looking at it from. I think this is just a clear piece of yellow plastic. I don't actually think that he has molded eyes, but yeah, that's an interesting effect. And of course, the actual head, it's not really reminiscent of the original character, aside from just, I guess, the yellowness for the eyes, or what were his eyes. But it's still cool. It looks kind of like a robot head as an aviator helmet. Like that little face mask in the front, all the line work along the top, which I also greatly appreciate. If you notice the seam for where the front and back of the head pieces are connected, they actually did paint these lines all the way back, so it doesn't just cut off when it gets to the back of the head. And that's really nice. I really, really like that. And if I fold this down, you can see he's got a little bit more silver for, like, I guess an ear. Let's try and pull this up to show it off a little bit more. Yeah. And you could totally have him like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" So yeah, and you get to decide like how much of a neck you want to give him. Yeah, and then this bit that was the top of the jet that is now his chest looks really nice. Some nice detail in the midsection, which is hard to see because this is, again, metal and painted black, so it's kind of difficult to make out, but it's there. Some nice detail in the pelvis area here, it's difficult to see, but these are actually painted like a slightly darker metallic gray, and then there's the red in the front there. And then some nice just molded detail on the thighs. Not a ton, but it's there. And you can see just like a little bit of circuitry detail on the inside of the legs. And the rest is all just like the folded up panels from the plane. For the arms, I really like how these shoulders just kind of pop out. I don't know, it's a neat effect, I think. It bulks them out a little bit and adds an interesting little visual element. It's just like this crack running down the middle. And I also like having these vents flipped up to add just a little bit more visual interest there. And then this was actually the side of the plane, and it opens just a little bit of detail there. And, again, it's all mostly plain detail around the arm. The hands are nice. The hands kind of remind me a little bit of Make Toys hands, actually. They have just kind of, I don't know, they have a similar quality to them where they're molded in a kind of could be used in a number of poses kind of way, like semi-open, semi-closed. Yeah, they look good. And yeah, even from the back, he looks pretty cool. Like just you've got that front of the plane all down his back, which is very neat. And the way the wings fold around to the back of his legs, they kind of close up. You can still see a little bit of a gap there, but they close up a lot more of the gaps. Yeah, he is very cool. Now, coming back to the gun, this just goes into his hand, and it's because it's in two halves, you can kind of see the split there. But it's actually very clever what they did. When you peg this into either hand, and it will go in either hand, you just peg that in, and normally that would be okay, a little bit loose, but whatever. But they actually molded in this tab that these two pieces come together to form, and it actually fits right into the slot on his forearm. So when you have all that in, that just goes in there, closes up that gap, and now it's like this very, very, that's a solid, he's got a solid grip on that thing. But it's still, you can still kind of see his hand in there too. So it's not like his hand is turned into a gun. It just helps him hold it much, much better. And that is much appreciated. That is very, very cool. So now, not really big on going over articulation. I mean, it's kind of, you can kind of tell just from looking at him the kind of articulation he has. I will say, though, I like that because of this extra hinge on the shoulders, you actually have a few options as to how you want to position them. Like you can put them lower, you can bring them up higher. It's just, personal preference, whatever you like. But that is a much appreciated detail. And as you've probably noticed, he actually does have a very nice double jointed elbow. Now, the legs, he's got the ball jointed hips, the rotation from the ball joint, but he also has like an actual birotation and waist rotation. Don't want to forget that. Now, with the knees, they're a little bit tricky because, again, like the wings don't really sit flush up against things, and they don't quite, like they don't peg in anywhere. So because of that, these are a little bit, like you notice, there's a little bit of wiggle here if you're trying to bend the knees. So you typically need to kind of hold, like put a thumb or something there as you bend the knees, because the knee joints are actually tighter than the joint that swings back this way. I mean, they're not super tight, they're just tighter. So it makes bending his knees, like you just have to be a little bit careful when bending his knees. And then for the ankles, flip him around here. For the ankles, he actually does rotate left and right, up and down. It's just, because it's a ball joint. So you can get some pretty decent ankle movement there. Now, for posing and, well, not posing, but for just like potential issues, uh, he has a couple. Before I get into that, actually, though, sorry. Before I get into that, let me bring in Fracture for a quick side by side. Be right back. And for Fracture, you can see they're actually very close to the same height. Fracture is a little bit taller, but not by a whole heck of a lot. So, yeah, they're they're pretty close. Yeah, anyway, I do have a couple of issues with this guy, as I said. The head popping off during transformation because of the canopy being like the clearances being too not enough is definitely one. Another issue that I've kind of come across is the ball joint on his head is actually kind of loose. I mean, it's okay. Like, it still poses. It's not that huge a deal. And I've noticed also that just by, like, I think the head might have been slightly loose when I first took him out of the box too, just from, that fail safe I mentioned. But yeah, the head is a little loose, so it's easy to knock out of place, but it'll stay wherever you put it. It's not. Yeah, he's not gonna, like, his head's gonna stay like that unless you bump it. Then it'll shift around a little bit, but it's okay. The other kind of another issue that I have is more with the legs. I should say one of the bigger issues I have is with the legs, and it's not like a toy breaking issue or anything like that. It's just, if you notice, the wings come down pretty far, and when you've got his legs out and his ankles tilted, then they don't necessarily scrape against the whatever surface you have him on, but the potential is there. And also, when you look at him from the side, it's kind of like, all you see is wing, and not a huge problem. I just, I think it might have been nice if there were a little bit of a way to, like, maybe slide these up or something, just to get them just a little bit out of the way, a little bit more, give him a little bit more clearance for his feet. But it is what it is. I just kind of worry a little bit that maybe that maybe these tail sections will get a little bit of wear on the corners over time. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. I don't plan on doing too much extraneous exercise with him or anything. So yeah, he is cool. And as you may remember, he still has this. And as you may also remember, this is a little bit scary tight, but we'll make it work. Okay. So this, can't even tell if that's on camera. Angle it down a little bit more. Okay. So this will plug into his butt. Right back here where this little thing, again, this is an optional piece that you can take out, but I just like to leave it in. You can just lift that out of the way and plug that in. Plug it in. Plug it in. A little tight. Okay. And then raise that up a little bit. Okay. And this is going to be let me just do a little adjustment here, and then I will raise the camera so you can kind of see what's going on. So turn that a little bit, I think, and twist him right. Okay. So as you can see, the stand holds him very nicely. And you can get some, you can get him in some flying poses, and I'm not terribly good at making an interesting looking flying pose. But yeah, you have several display options, and get that off his butt again. And coming back to how the stand is actually modular and can be configured in a bunch of different ways, you could even set it up more like I had it when I was first showing it off, and it'll be more like almost like a repair station for him or something, which is also quite cool. Get him situated. Get this out of the way. And yeah, this is just this is a very, very cool little guy. I am actually I'm super happy with him. He's got a couple of little nagging issues, but they're kind of minor, all things considered. Pardon me while I'm kind of doing this and also fiddling with the stand because I want to show the other thing off. Yeah, he is very cool, and I do believe well worth it. Let's just get this put together here. Okay. Pardon me. And then we have his little repair bay stand, or whatever you want to call it. Scaffolding something. I don't know. It's cool that this is an option. And because the stand is made up of all these little interconnecting pieces that you can kind of set up however you want, it gives you a lot of different display options. And these three little ratchet pieces, you actually can keep them on the base for display. You can just peg them down here and just have them in the background. And you can leave this part facing out so it actually looks like part of the setup here. I just don't have them on because I didn't feel like straightening all of these out and plugging them on, because that would have just added even more time to this already much longer than usual video. There we go. But yeah, I mean, okay. I wouldn't have ordered the Machine Robo MR-03 Eagle Robo for myself had I not thought that he was cool, and had I not thought that the base and all that stuff was interesting. But even with me ordering this stuff, I'm honestly really impressed with just how cool all of this turned out. It is a really neat set, and like just the base is great. With the arm is very solid. The figure is fantastic, and just very, very cool. He's a good he is cool. I am honestly I'm not really interested in any of the other Machine Robos that we've seen so far, just because I don't really have that much of an attachment to those characters, except maybe Psykill, but only slightly. But he was the one I really wanted, and I'm super, super happy with him. I am hoping, though, that maybe if this does well, that Action Toys will see fit to do one for Crasher and possibly some of the other GoBots, because that would be really awesome. I'd be really, really down to see some of their interpretations of this. Hopefully, some of them don't have the same head popping off issue, which is really the big one that I have with this guy. But yeah, this is a very, very cool, very solid, very surprisingly like this guy, I would say, quality-wise, is on par with a lot of the other third-party figures that I have. Make Toys, Perfect Effect, he's up there. And like the engineering, the transformation is like the transformation is vaguely similar to the original toy, which is really cool. And it's like it's involved, but it's still pretty simple and intuitive. Like I used the directions to make sure I was doing things properly, but most of the steps are pretty self-explanatory, and it all makes a lot of sense. It's very, very cool. And it's just like the way that they fold the plane bits around his arms to close everything off, and it just, yeah, he's very cleverly engineered, which I've said, but he really is. And I would highly recommend him to anyone who's even curious, like GoBot fan or no. This is a really cool transforming toy. So yeah, he is super sweet. Yeah, this kind of turned into more of a review than a figure study, and I am sorry for that. But he's just very cool. It's hard to not ramble about him. I will say though, I do like how the light gray of the plane is broken up nicely by the darker gray of the bits that are revealed once he's in robot mode. Works very nicely. I still can't quite decide if I prefer to have the flaps flared out to kind of cover up the gaps in his shoulders, or keep them up for that goofy popped collar look. But yeah, he is something. I'm just now looking at this. Just looking at the ball joint in the shoulder there. I think that's just a little bit of like flash or powder, whatever you want to call it, from the plastic. I don't think that's actually any kind of stress on the joints. I think they're actually holding up pretty well. So yeah, that has been the Machine Robo MR-03 Eagle Robo. I do not plan on getting any of the other ones anytime soon, so sorry if you're looking forward to seeing any videos on those. But I will promise you, if they release one for Crasher, that's going to happen. I will be on that. So if you'd like to get your own, there will be a description down there. Very, very, very worth it. I mean, it even comes with its own stand. Come on. And yeah, so thank you everybody for watching. As per usual, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Any combination of those three would be awesome. And remember, as always, art is more than meets the eye.